Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to the Hubneat Organizing Laboratory, also known as my house. Today we're going to talk about something that's been requested, and that's how to organize your refrigerator. Now, chances are you've got a refrigerator whether you live in an apartment, a house, even in a dorm room. I remember I had a dorm fridge in my dorm room freshman year. And I think the years after that too. Anyway, we use it to cool our foods, keep them nice and cold so bacteria doesn't grow as quickly, so that we can eat our food and keep it fresher for longer. Now, we first began cooling our food in about 1750 by using ice to keep our food cooler for longer, and then in 1843 the first vapor compression fridge was invented, and then in 1913 the first actual refrigerator was invented, and it's become pretty much commonplace in a lot of our homes today. The whole point of cooling our food is to prevent or slow the growth of bacteria, keeping our food fresher and safer to eat for longer. However, the more food you put in there, the more people that are going in there, the more everything's all over the place. You know the fridge can get a little bit hairy, and speaking of hairy, sometimes you can find some things just worthy of a science experiment in there, right? We're going to talk about how to store things in there optimally, where to store things in there optimally, and how to make your fridge a little more organized and a lot less crazy when you open it up. Now let's talk about the temperature in your fridge. So according to the FDA, anything below 40 degrees they say is safe to store your food. However, I find that the sweet spot, the optimal temperature for your fridge to be set is about 38 degrees. Now when you set your refrigerator to 38 degrees, that doesn't mean your whole refrigerator is definitely 38 degrees. There are warm spots and cold spots in your refrigerator. There are temperature variations in every refrigerator that is ever invented. It's not going to be the same temperature all the way around, and that's totally okay. That means we're going to store things that are better in very cold places, in the colder parts of the fridge, and things that can tolerate a little more heat in the warmer parts of the fridge, and we'll talk about what those parts are now. If you're willing to do a little bit of experimenting, and believe me, this is worth it to me, you can grab a refrigerator thermometer at a place like Crate & Barrel, or I think you could even get them at Staples or Target or Walmart or Kmart or any of these places like that. I think this one cost about $10, and you can buy it and you can place it in various parts of your fridge. Close the door, don't open it for a couple of hours, and then see what the temperature is. And then after that, move it to a different part of the fridge, leave it for a couple of hours, and see what the temperature is. Now you can see that in various places of the fridge, the temperature is going to be slightly different. Even if it's by a couple of degrees, that can make a big difference about where you store things. So pretty consistently, the doors in the refrigerator tend to be the warm zone of the fridge. And then these are going to be getting, in my fridge, they're getting close to 39, 40 degrees, so they're relatively warm. And this is where you're going to want to put things that have natural preservatives or that can stand a little bit of warm stuff, such as drinks, condiments. Condiments tend to have a lot of vinegar and salt in them so that they can last a little longer at a little warmer temperature. So this is what we've done with our fridge. So in the door here, we've got, these are like chicken stock, minced garlic, sort of ginger here. These are things that we cook with. And here we've got actually condiments. There's ketchup and mayonnaise and mustard here, and some olive tapenade too. And down here, we just have sauces that we cook with. So we've got like soy sauce, sriracha, fish sauce, all that stuff that we cook with is here. So these are the categories that work for our home, but they might not work for your house, but you can do whatever works for you. And here's the other side. Up here we've got hot sauces and maple syrup. We've got a various amount of pickled things. And we have some beverages, including our lime juice and lemon juice, just in case we need a shortcut one day. One thing that you'll notice that's missing from the door storage in our refrigerator is eggs. Now I know that a lot of you have compartments for eggs in your fridge, and it's probably because it's an older fridge. Because actually, eggs don't do that well in the warmest parts of the fridge. We'll talk about eggs in just a minute. They get their own little category. So now that we've talked about the warm zones in your fridge, I want to keep there, we'll talk about the cold zones. The cold zones of the refrigerator tend to be at the back of the refrigerator, way back there. So you can see we've got some salad dressing and some yogurt back there, and also down below. So way down below here, you can't see it, but I'm gonna show it to you later, is the meat and dairy drawer. Now, newer refrigerators actually have this deli center down here where you're supposed to keep meat and cheeses. That's because this tends to be a really cold part of the refrigerator, and it's actually made for your delis and cheeses to last longer down here. And in other parts of the fridge, maybe the mid area of the fridge, you can keep, whatever you want. We have beverages have their own little zone here, and we've got an area just at the top there for leftovers. If you keep them all together, you can see exactly how many you have, and that way you're not going crazy trying to find that leftover hamburger that you got, on a couple nights ago. And we've got pretty much some fruits and vegetables that are miscellaneous down here that we've already began cutting so that we don't reach for a new one when we need it. And of course, here are the crisper drawers, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. One of my favorite ways to preventing mess in the refrigerator is this is our deli drawer, and we have separate containers for anything that might spill or be messy. So we've got the raw meat in here in its own little container. So if something happens, if the liquid from this beef starts to spill, it just is limited to this container and doesn't go everywhere, contaminating everything. You can just use like the bottom of some food packaging and plastic food packaging. You don't have to go out and get this fancy organizer, although these are really nice. And this is where all of our dairy lives. Let's talk about humidity. It doesn't just frizz your hair, it also helps your vegetables last longer, and we'll talk about that. Now, you may be wondering what that humidity setting is in your crisper drawers and why it's important and what you're supposed to do with it. I wondered that for the longest time, but after a little bit of research, I understand, and it totally makes sense now. Certain vegetables, such as leafy greens, lettuces, things that can wilt after you've harvested them, need a humid environment to stay fresher longer and to keep from spoiling. These vegetables also tend to be sensitive to a plant hormone called ethylene. Ethylene is a hormone produced by certain plants, and it tends to ripen vegetables or age them and make them, spoil faster. So certain plants are going to be sensitive to that ethylene, and certain vegetables and fruits are going to be producing that ethylene. So these two sort of families of vegetables and fruits need to be stored away from one another so that they don't mess with each other's mojo. In general, fruits that continue to ripen after you've picked them, such as apples, pears, bananas, those tend to be the ethylene producers, and plants that tend to wilt after they've lost some moisture, such as like spinaches, lettuce, cabbage, things like that, tend to be ethylene sensitive. However, there's no hard and fast rules or anything. I'm gonna leave a list of ethylene sensitive and ethylene producing plants down below, and they'll also be on my blog, iwaslookingforthat.com. This is the blue apple. It contains an inert chemical in it that actually neutralizes ethylene gas and makes it into some harmless chemical in your fridge. So these are great for making your produce last longer, and it's just a little packet inside, you can see. And you just replace the little packet in the blue apple, and of course it's a blue apple so you won't mistake it for real food. And you can just drop it inside your produce drawer, or the drawer actually that you're keeping potatoes in and those kinds of things, or you can put it on your in your fruit bowl on the table. It makes your life so much easier. Blue apple's great because they're environmentally friendly, because after 3 months you can replace the packet and you can compost the old packet. Let's talk about eggs. I love eggs. Don't you love eggs? This is my egg compartment. Now, the egg container that you get from the grocery store is perfectly fine. They're actually meant to store eggs in a really efficient manner. You don't have to get a separate egg container. This is one that I like because I can actually put things on top of the egg container because it's solid. And you probably are like, how do you know when the eggs are going to expire? Well, I've got a little label on it. I'm gonna show it to you right now. And it's got a little reusable label, so I can erase the date, the expiration date, every time I use all the eggs, and I can put the new expiration date when the eggs come into the house. So Eggs should be stored in one of those cold zones that we talked about, either at the bottom of the fridge or the back of the fridge so that they last longer. Eggs have their own sort of situation. The best way to store eggs I've discovered is actually pointy side down. So the egg has two sides. It's got a fat side and a pointy side. The pointy side contains the yolk, and the fat side contains mostly the albumin or the white of the egg. So the yolk of the egg is actually the most perishable part and spoils the fastest and is most susceptible to bacterial growth. So the little did you know, there's also a little air pocket inside this egg. So depending on how you store this is where the air pocket is closest to. The albumin, or the white part of the egg, contains some bacterial killing properties. So you want to make sure that the albumin and the air pocket are closer so that the bacteria that are in the air pocket have to travel through the albumin and to get to the yolk. Otherwise, they can get right to the yolk if they're at the air pocket here and make your egg spoil faster. Did that make sense? It made sense to me. According to eggsafety.org, your eggs should be stored below 43 degrees if you are an American. If you are probably from another part of the world where they don't refrigerate eggs, that's probably fine. But if you live in the US, you probably should refrigerate your eggs, and here's why. In a lot of countries, such as like some European countries, the chickens that we get our eggs from are required to be vaccinated for salmonella. So therefore, when they lay their eggs, they don't pass on salmonella to the eggs. There is no such vaccination requirement in this country. So when the egg is hatched by the chicken, the egg is covered in, I don't want to say anything, but it's going to be grossing you out. And so the eggs are power washed and they lose their protective coating. There's a protective coating called the cuticle that protects the egg from bacteria, but this cuticle is washed away in this country. So that way the eggs are a little more susceptible to spoiling. That is why we put our eggs in the refrigerator. So refrigerate your eggs. Let's talk about leftovers, man. I love me some leftovers. You know, sometimes soups are really good the next day rather than like the day you cook it. You know what I mean? They just taste a little better. So when you're putting leftovers into the fridge, there's a couple things you need to remember. Small food storage containers are the best. Even if you've made a large amount of soup, you want to split it up into multiple containers so that you're not putting very high temperature of food into the fridge and warming up everything else around it. My favorite food storage containers tend to be shallow ones that are easy to see through and that are made of glass. I love glass containers because they don't retain the smell of any food or stains for things that are brightly colored, such as tomatoes, turmeric, curry powder, you know what I'm saying. In plastic, it sticks to it, it smells, it's disgusting. So this has a plastic lid, which is not that bad, but it does have a glass bottom. You can put them in the top of your dishwasher and they wash up really nicely. Another really great tip for organizing things in your fridge in food storage containers is to actually pop a label on the food storage container. As you can see, it says 10/28, and that's actually when this lemon was cut. So when I go in there and I see like a really late date from way back in the day, I know this lemon might not be so good anymore. This is actually an erasable label from a brand called Label Once. And the label is safe to put in the dishwasher. It doesn't come off. You can erase it and write on it with Sharpie. It's really, really great. And I have so many of those. I use them around the house. I got them from the Container Store, and you can get refills. They are really one of my favorite things for organizing the fridge. The thing about that also is I keep the labels and the Label Once things right next to the fridge. So if I get any new food storage containers or anything like that, I can just pop a label on, write the date on there, and I'm good to go. I don't have to worry about going to another area of my house. The final way to really keep your fridge organized, and this is really, really essential, is to actually take advantage of meal planning. Now I know meal planning scares some people and it seems like a lot of maintenance, and it is, but it's really the main thing that's gonna keep your fridge from getting too crazy, because the only things that you're gonna be having in there are a few extra snacks, maybe some drinks, and the ingredients for the meals that you're making throughout the week, and maybe some things for lunch as well. You're not gonna be buying a whole bunch of extra food that you don't need. My favorite meal planning app is actually called Mealime. This is not sponsored. They have no idea who I am. They don't know I'm doing this video. I just really, really, really love this app. Mealime is a great free app that you can download from the iTunes store. I believe it's also available for Android. It is a app in which you choose, however many meals you'd like to eat throughout the week. You can choose exactly what kind of things you would like to eat. If you're a flexitarian, you can try to eat everything. If you are a vegetarian, you can eat that. You can eat vegan foods. You can eat paleo. They have a bunch of choices for menus, and they have really, really awesome recipes that each take 30 minutes or less, and they're fairly healthy. Some of them are a little high in fat and salt, but they're always very tasty. I haven't come across a lot that I would not make again. I really, really love the Mealime app because they give you a grocery list. You can add more things to it, and you can go shopping. You can cross off the things you already have, and then you can bring home all your ingredients once a week, and then you can just make your meals throughout the week, and by the time you get to the end of the week, your fridge is practically empty and you need to go shopping again. So I love the Mealime app. It's cheaper than things like Blue Apron or HelloFresh, and you're totally in charge of your meals, and it makes you feel like a grown-up when you are meal planning. It's really awesome. Well, that does it for this week's organizing video. Did you find any tips that worked for you? Do you have any other tips that I didn't talk about? Leave them in a comment down below and tell me about your fridge organizing dilemmas. Or if you have any questions, leave them down below. And for more organizing tips, visit hubneatorganizing.com. Bye, everyone.